Old truck, new truck. Well, YouTube, in keeping with the current YouTube trend of buying new vehicles this summer, I also have bought a new truck. And I've got the unique opportunity to compare these two trucks while I still have my old truck here to the right with me before I go ahead and sell it. And the one on the right is a 89 F-150, and the new truck on the left is a 1995 F-250. And this is just a really good chance to go over these two vehicles a little bit and kind of compare some of the differences. And I'll start out here with my current truck, the 89 F-250. I made a couple of videos about this truck before. Did a sending unit video on it recently, and also a small tour of the truck. I'll just go over some of the features briefly. It is a 4x4. It's got the manual locking hubs, original, and the new F-250. It's the F-250 XLT. Comes with the automatic locking hubs. So it too is a 4x4, and that was one of the criteria I was looking for when purchasing a replacement truck, is to basically have just what I have now as far as functionality goes, but something a little bit newer, something a little bit nicer. The sending unit video actually of the truck, the sending unit repair was actually done partly in preparation to get this truck ready for sale. I've actually been thinking about getting a different truck for about 2 years now, but there's not really anything wrong with this truck, so I wasn't really in too big of a hurry to go ahead and do that, and so therefore wasn't very aggressive in my pursuit of a new truck. But this new truck came along literally within a mile of my house, came up for sale, and I just felt that the time was right. And at the same time, one of my friends contacted me, and he actually expressed some interest in purchasing this truck. So everything just kind of seemed to work out for the better. The time seemed right, so I went ahead and made the plunge. So just like this truck over here, we have a 8-foot box and 4x4, and I already showed you the automatic locking hubs, and the automatic locking hubs are not quite as strong as the manual hubs. So if you're going to do any really extreme off-roading, a manual hub is the way to go. But you know, for around town like I'm going to be doing, and maybe driving in some snow and some occasional light off-road, the automatic locking hubs are just fine. So we'll get back over here to the 89 model, and paint is still in okay shape. It's not the best paint in the world, but that's kind of why I bought it. I don't really have to worry too much about scratching it up or anything like that. It does have these nice grab hooks you can hook stuff to. Like I said before, it's got 2 gas tanks, a front and a rear gas tank. And likewise, so does the new truck. That was part of the criteria I was using, is basically to pretty much get this same truck, only a little bit better. The rear fuel tank behind the rear axle is brand new, as well as the sending unit. And about 3 or 4 weeks ago, I replaced the sending unit in the midship tank. And this truck, I believe, has what Ford called the off-road package, which is why, if you look underneath here, where the fuel tanks are, you've got these skid plates, and where the transfer case is, you've got a skid plate under it too. And if we compare that to the 95 F-250, which is also a 4x4, you can see that there are no skid plates under here. That's the midship gas tank, and that there is the crankcase. the transfer case. So no skid plates under this model. So it does not appear to have the off-road package like the 89 does. So that's a minor setback. However, one of the things it does have, if I can zoom in, is the Dana 50 IFS, or Dana 50 axle up front, as opposed to the 89 model, which has the typical Dana 44. Both really good axles. And if we come around to the back, actually I'll go on this side. On the back here we have a single exhaust. And the rear axle is a semi-floating Ford 8.8 with 355 gears. And comparing that to the 250 over here, we've got dual exhaust, and we have the Ford 10 1/4 inch full floating axle with 355 gears. And you can tell it's full floating because of the unique hub design on these, which looks very similar to the hubs you see on the back of school buses and larger trucks. This right here is basically the axle shaft. If you were to take out these screws, or these bolts, this would actually pull right on out, and that's your actual shaft. It's not really held in on inside the differential with C-clips, like in a traditional case. This entire hub and brake drum assembly turns on its own dedicated bearing, and the advantage of that is that all the weight inside the bed and everything is borne by the bearings, and nothing is borne by the axle. So all the axle has to do is just apply torque to drive the rear wheels. So that gives this truck a much higher GVWR rating for towing. And also, the axle, I think I mentioned before, is limited slip, which means that both left and right tires are going to be responsible for applying torque, instead of basically just one wheel driving the truck, as in this case. So, for example, if this wheel were stuck in mud and spinning, or actually with the traditional axle, if this wheel didn't have any traction, it would just sit here and spin and not drive the vehicle. But with this axle that we have here, both tires are going to have traction. So this is a much better setup all around, especially for driving in snow. So getting back to the 89 model, this is the Ford XLT Lariat, and the interior is in pretty good shape. It's got only, I can't hardly see, but basically 121,600 miles, which is pretty low. It's got the power door locks, power windows, and the upgraded instrument cluster. And as I've shown you before, the front and rear tanks. And it's got the 5-speed manual with overdrive. And over here is your 4x4 setup. So you've got a 2-wheel drive mode, 4-wheel high, and then low gear. So you've really got a total of 10 speeds effectively between the transmission and also the transfer case. Then we compare that to the 95 model. It's really interesting to see how Ford basically took the same body style and made incremental improvements over the years. Oh, by the way, I just just bought this thing actually last Sunday. I still had the for sale sign that was in the window. And I just finished getting it toggled and everything back in September 10th, so I got it done on Monday, and it originally had 149,000 miles on it, almost 150. And I have all the original manuals with it, including the warranty card. So I've got all the paperwork that came with it, which is really nice to have. And this dashboard looks very much the same. Got a full gauge complement and your front and rear fuel tank selector. But this one is actually a 4-speed automatic. It's got the AODE, no, I'm sorry, it's got the E40D transmission in here, which is basically the modifications of the Ford C6. Basically, a lot of the guts inside that transmission are very much the same as the Ford C6 transmission. And just like in the 89, you've got your 2H, 4H, and 4L selectors in with a manual lever. So you've got multiple speeds there. 4-speed transmission here. So basically you have 8 speeds with this truck versus 10 in the other. Still pretty nice. The original factory radio, I still have that. It doesn't work. So this truck came with an aftermarket radio. And it's got, I don't know if you can see, but a Sony CD player under the seat, which they said doesn't work, but I might be able to get that running. I think it's missing a CD case or cartridge. So, very nice interior. It's got the center, it's got what they call the 40-20-40 seating arrangement. So the truck basically has bucket seats that are manually adjustable, but you have a power lumbar feature on here, which is really nice. And then you have a center fold-down armrest that you can store things in, like change and CDs and cassettes and all those kinds of things, as well as the cup holders. So that's a nice feature to have that the 89 model didn't have. This is the F250 XLT. It's not a Lariat. I don't know if they actually had the Lariat package back then. So let's get into the hood a little bit, see what's going on in there. And one difference this is between the two trucks is this is the 5.8 liter electronically fuel injected V8. So this is the 351 Windsor V8 engine. And over here we have the venerable 5 liter or 302 fuel injected V8 engine. Both engines are really strong. I'd rather had a 460 in a truck like this, or maybe even the Power Stroke diesel for more towing capacity and more torque, but there's really nothing wrong with the 351 Windsor. They're very strong engines. They have a lot of performance potential, very reliable, and I don't really have, a large boat or a camper or anything like that, so this engine is going to be just fine for me. Still not too good on gas mileage, but overall I think it'd be a nice ride. So that pretty much outlines some of the differences between these two trucks. They're very, very much the same. So it represents a really nice upgrade. This 250 is in much better shape. Not a whole lot of rust on the frame. And another difference is the F250 has front leaf springs, whereas on the 89 F150 it's got traditional coil springs. Now this truck has a 6-inch lift kit on here, made by, I think if I can zoom in, Superlift. Some of the lettering is obscured. Got a little bit more rust on the frame, but still very solid. It's not going to crack in half and fall apart. And part of the lift kit has 2 shocks on each side versus the standard suspension on the F250, which is a single shock. And we also have a steering damper installed as well too, along with the lift kit, which the 250 doesn't have. But I don't really need a lifted truck. They're kind of nice to have, but there's not really any place around here to do any serious off-roading or anything, so that's not too much of a sacrifice. It's kind of nice to have a standard truck because the tow hitches you buy and everything don't have to be anything special, and it's just better riding and easier to get in and out of. This truck has the factory running boards on here as well too, which look really nice and integrate very well into the body. And the 89 has these aftermarket running boards, which are still pretty nice. But there's a little bit of a safety hazard if you're not careful. You can get your foot caught in between there sometimes and give your ankle a good twist. So that's not terribly good, but other than that, they look really nice. I've got brand new General Grabber AT2 all-terrain tires on the 150, which have served me very well. Going to be ashamed to see those go. And over here on the 250, we've got Michelin highway tires, basically, just regular light truck tires. Michelin makes a very good tire. The reason that the back tire looks a little bit different is this is the original spare from Goodyear that came with the truck, because something happened to the original tire, and the guy I bought it from took it to get it fixed, and instead of fixing it, he filled it up full of air and forgot about it and blew the hell out of it. So he ruined this nice Michelin tire, which is about $160 a piece, and just destroyed it. But I do have the original wheel and center hub assembly. I can go ahead and get new tires if I need to. And the truck also came with this shell. That's the original shell that came with it from the factory. I'm not sure if I'm going to put that on the truck or not. On the one hand, it would be nice to have the security. You can put stuff back there and not have to worry about getting them stolen or having it get wet. But on the other hand, having an open bed like that definitely comes in handy as well too. So I'm just sort of thinking about that. I may do that, I may not. The 89 has a aftermarket bed liner in there, which is pretty good, as well as the manual sliding glass rear window. And over here on the F250, they did not get a bed liner for it, but the bed is actually still in pretty good shape. Not a lot of dents, just got the usual wear and tear kind of scratches on it. And just like the 89, we have the manual sliding back window also, which comes in really handy. And for safety, the high mount stoplight, which was not standard in 1989. And I've got a couple of choices with this bed. I could either go in with a spray-in bed liner, have it professionally installed, which would look really nice. It might add a lot of weight to the truck, and I'm not sure if it could be easily replaced if it got damaged. Or I could go with a regular aftermarket bed liner, just like in the F-150 there. So I've got some things to think about, which is actually kind of the fun of all this. And it's got these nice factory hook loops built in that you can lift up and tie stuff to, like bungee cords and stuff like that. and these nice protectors along the sides of the bed and everything, so when you have stuff hanging out over there, you're not going to damage the paint but so much. So that's pretty cool to have. So overall, I'm really happy with the purchase. I think it's a really nice upgrade. This is the extended cab version, or maybe they call it the super cab version, whereas the older truck that I have is just a standard cab. And that just makes this really nice to be able to store stuff back here. This seat here flips up, and you've got a small seat back here that you can I can actually fit back there pretty good. I'm not sure about a lot of other people, but it's not too bad actually. And the back of the seat folds down. It's got a metal backing on it right there. It turns into a little platform you can store heavier items on. So definitely a lot more features than the you know, 89 model that I have. It's got air conditioning, just your basic air conditioning system, and it actually works. The compressor spins freely. Original compressor. This truck also has air conditioning, but the compressor is completely locked. I put a wrench on that thing, center bolt, and I could not turn it whatsoever. And you can tell by looking at the accumulator what happened. All the oil basically leaked out over time. And just like an engine without any oil, this compressor, which is just a little 6-cylinder engine, there's little 3 plungers front and back on a swash plate that do like this as it turns, seized right up. So that's yet another reason to do an upgrade. I could have put a new AC compressor in and a new accumulator and evacuated and recharged, but didn't want to spend the money on that. It actually worked out better to go ahead and get a different truck with a working air conditioner. Just not deal with that problem at all. So that's a good comparison between the two trucks. I don't really have an opportunity to get two vehicles like this side by side and go over them. They're basically the very same truck. One has front leaf springs, one has coil springs, and the 250's got a little bit heavier springs in the back and a heavier axle compared to the 150. But that's pretty much what the differences are. It's basically able to haul more and tow more. And the truck's got a unique paint scheme. I just like the way it looks. The paint's in good shape. All original. And the paint over here doesn't look all that bad, but I do like the two-tone. So I'm going to have a lot of projects with this new truck, and just got it on Sunday, got it titled and registered on Monday, and I'm going to take you guys through the whole process of what I like to do with these cars, or trucks actually, to get these roadworthy and make them a little bit better and do the maintenance on them. I call that process kind of like a shakedown phase, where I just go through all the various systems front to back and go through each one and renew them, make sure that they're going to last a long time. So I'll be making a series of videos to go over changing the engine oil, changing all the fluids, the engine oil, power steering fluid, brake fluid, and then working back the transmission and differential fluid, as well as going over some of the problems that I had with the vehicle, or problems I noticed with this when I bought it. So it would have been nice to have the 460. That would have been the ultimate truck that I would be looking for, but the 351 Windsor is still a really good motor, And if I want something extremely powerful, I have this car here, which I have yet to make a video about, the 300C SRT8 that I have if I want to get somewhere rapidly. I'll be making a video of that sometime in the next few weeks. But so that's a kind of an introduction to the truck and everything, and well, I want to take you guys on the, like, maybe the mental process that I used that might help you out when you're looking for a used truck to evaluate one of these. It doesn't have to be a truck, it could be a car, you know, anything really. And let me go ahead and pull the hood shut just a little bit so I can show you guys. And one of the first things that you'll automatically do just by human nature when you approach one of these is to, you know, you're looking at it and you want to be able to tell, you know, what kind of condition the paint is in. And when you start evaluating this to see if you really want this, and if you do, how much money to pay for it, you'll notice that the left front fender, the paint's peeling off. And if you look even closer, you can see a couple of paint runs on here. Whereas if you look on the passenger side, the fender's perfect. And if you step up here and look at the roof, you've got some paint fade up here, the typical peeler, clear coat starting to come off. Typically happens on the horizontal surfaces that are more exposed to the sun versus the side surfaces. But the hood is in really good shape. The paint looks very good. So when you see something like that that looks kind of out of the ordinary, why only one part of the body would look like this compared to all the other parts of the body, that should alert you to something going on. That means this truck has a story to tell. And that basically means that this fender has either been off the car or the fender has been damaged and repaired, and they did not do a proper repair. This never would have left the factory with paint runs like that. It never would have gotten out of quality control. So that alerts me to take a deeper look into this and see what kind of story this thing has to tell. Was this thing actually involved in an accident? Or was it sitting in the driveway and some kind of object like a tree fell on here? Was it something as minor as that? It's worth looking into as you're evaluating the vehicle to try to see if you want to buy it and get a good price. So we'll come in here and pop the hood open again. And since now I suspect this thing's been in some kind of an accident, I want to see what kind of an accident was it in, and did it have a happy ending or did it have a bad ending? So one of the other things you want to look for is this a Ford fender? And it is. It's actually a Ford OEM fender. It's either been purchased after the vehicle is made for a repair, or it's the same fender that came with the truck. The other things you want to look for are your witness marks, like where the bolts used to be. You can sort of tell that little ring around there is where that washer might have used to have belonged. Maybe they had the hood hinge taken off as part of taking off the fender. So you want to look out for stuff like that as well. And to try to assess how bad the damage might have been, you want to look at the other body panels that the fender is attached to. So one thing I notice here is that the fender alignment is just not quite what it should be. If you can, I don't know if you can tell with the camera, but the fender is sticking out just a little bit compared to the door. But we have good alignment, good gap all the way down. So that's looking good. if you come to the other side, the gap and the alignment is just spot on. Perfect. Not a problem at all. Tape stripes line up perfectly. And we'll come over here and look at the tape stripes over here. And they line up pretty good too. So a lot of people, when they see a truck like this or a car like this, they might be thinking, well gee, I don't want to buy a Ford. You know, look at it, it just doesn't last. All the paint's peeling off and the fit and finish is bad. But you really have to think about it a little bit more carefully than that. You have to be objective and open-minded and allow for the possibility that this might be an improper repair or just maybe an average repair, and looks to me like it was definitely an average repair. The paint is just horrible. All these paint runs. This never would have left the factory like that. So now you want to look at the areas of the body where the fender is attached to, like the front radiator yoke assembly. And this looks original because of the level of rust on there. And I don't see any bends or creases or anything like that, or any witness marks like I talked about earlier. And you also want to check the inner fender apron here to see if that has any evidence of being bent and straightened out, being repainted, stuff like that. And it looks like it has not. So these are all the things that I'm going, or that I was actually were going through my mind last Sunday when I was looking at this vehicle really closely. If I zoom in right there, you can tell that the inner fender there, you see some overspray, and it's also black. The anti-corrosion coating is also black. And if we look over on this side, I don't know if you can tell, but that's gray, which is standard Ford E-coat, what they call electroplated or electrocoating. It's the undercoating that they have. The entire body of the vehicle is dipped in E-coat before it's sent to be painted. So this is not the original fender that came on the truck. This is a Ford replacement fender, not something made in China or anything like that, so that's good. But it does tell me that this vehicle was involved in some kind of collision, and I think that the collision was a minor collision so far. So because it's involved in a collision, now we want to look under the vehicle and see what kind of damage, if any, or evidence we can find under here. And one of the things that you'll notice is if you look at that leaf spring shackle up front, you've got a sticker on there that says Ford Service Parts. That's not typically something you see from the factory. This is what you would see if you went to the dealership right now today and bought a front shackle for a 95 F250 leaf spring. You would have that sticker on there. And judging by the condition of the rubber bushing in there, this accident seems to have happened quite some time ago. It didn't just happen a few weeks ago. Looking at this, as well as the corrosion on the bolt, these are some of the hints that you can use to sort of paint a picture and let this thing tell you a story as to what happened. The leaf spring is original, 1994. The truck was actually made in October 94. So we have an original leaf spring and a replacement shackle. So that still tells me this wreck was not all that bad. So if I look at the bumper mounts, because that's the first thing that you're going to hit, if you're going to hit anything at all, front end, we see that we have another sticker. If I can zoom in. Let's see. It says Ford Service Parts on there. I'm not sure if you can tell. Date code 1999. If I can turn that around. This camera is not the easiest to focus with. Anyway, hopefully you can see that. That's the bumper bracket that mounts to the frame. So now that the bumper bracket date has an actual date code on here of 1999 for the part manufacturer. The wreck probably happened in 1999 to 2002, somewhere in that time frame, and the bumper was involved, or they wouldn't have replaced this. So it wasn't really a matter of a tree falling on it or anything like that. Next thing we want to do is look at the frame very closely and see if we can find any evidence of the frame being bent or being bent and then straightened. And I don't see any. Still had an appropriate amount of rust on here compared to the other parts of the truck. So these bumper brackets actually are designed to sacrifice themselves to a certain point. They'll bend and take most of the impact away, but if you hit something hard enough, of course, it's going to destroy the bumper bracket and start getting into your frame and bend your frame and leaf spring and everything else. The bumper also looks like it may have been replaced. I see some stickers on here that the writing has been erased off of or faded off of. If I look under here, if I could, yeah, let's look on the other side. I do see a sticker up there, but I can't read it. All the lettering has worn off of it. But the bumper more than likely has been replaced, but it looks like a good quality replacement bumper. A lot of times with the aftermarket bumpers, the chrome plating on here is really shoddy. It's thin and the metal is not prepared right, so the chrome starts flaking off within a couple of years. When you have an accident like that, if you don't really stay on those guys, they will use the cheapest parts they can possibly find. So, but this looks like it might have actually been repaired at the dealership. The bumper shows up really nice. So, whatever accident this was involved in was more than likely a minor frontal side offset type of collision. Maybe the guy was making a left-hand or a right-hand turn and collided into something. Didn't seem to be very major. The headlights looks like they're faded at the same rate. So whatever accident that he had was so minor, it didn't even damage the headlight assembly or the bezel or anything like that. Looks like we've got good bumper alignment to the body. Same distance there. And if we do a side profile, the bumper's pretty much straight. It looks like it might be tilting up slightly, but basically it's pretty straight. So I'm pretty happy with that. With a 17-year-old vehicle, it's pretty hard not to find one that hasn't been in an accident. But if it has, you just want to make sure that the accident wasn't major and that it was repaired properly. And this is a case where it looks like I got lucky, and it did. I can take this to a body shop and get this fender touched up and repainted pretty easily. That's not going to be too hard to do. And I think I'll do that before the undercoating comes off and starts to rust really bad. So, one of the other things I did before I purchased it, that you guys should all do when you want to purchase a vehicle, is I ran a Carfax on it. So we have the same vehicle, 95 F250 5.8 liter 4-wheel drive. And the Carfax actually came back pretty clean, but basically all the Carfax is, it just tells you the titling. You know, purchased back in 94 at the dealer. This truck was local here to the area, so it is nice to know that. Basically, Knott's Island, North Carolina. Gives you a history of the ownership, but we don't see anywhere in here where this thing was involved in any kind of accident. All we really see is where this thing was changing hands. I'm basically the third owner, it looks like, which is nice. So the Carfax came back really clean, but it's good to run the Carfaxes. You really should do that. But just be warned, it's not the be-all end-all. Not everything gets reported to Carfax. Within the Carfax I just showed you, there's no records of maintenance being done to it. Certainly no record of being in any kind of accident. And we know for sure that this vehicle was involved in an accident. So it really comes down to using your own eyes to give something like this a very, very careful examination before you get into it financially, just to know exactly what you're getting into. And this accident, which probably took place right there, was very, very minor. So I'm okay with that. That's pretty easy to fix. So now that's out of the way, the next thing that was going through my mind is evaluating everything under the hood, evaluating the engine. And one of the first things I noticed, nobody pays attention to positive crankcase ventilation anymore these days, and it's such an important part of keeping your engine clean and well lubricated. This PCV hose is cracked all to hell right here where it meets the nipple to the valve cover. So this engine, for some period of time, I'm not sure how long, has been sucking in unfiltered air through here, through the valve cover. So that's going to have to be replaced. And I've got some parts from my junkyard that I got to yesterday to replace that. That hose is no longer available from Ford, unfortunately. And if you look at the breather element attachment, it looks like it's never been replaced, judging by the amount of rust on the clip that holds it in. Basically this clip right there. So that's going to need some maintenance. Nothing too major. Next thing you want to look at is checking your belts. And you can see this belt is very old. It's even got some checking on the outside. And definitely some pretty good cracking on the underside of the belt as well too. So that'll have to be replaced. One of the things that makes me very happy about this truck is it's all original. Hasn't been somebody's science experiment putting all kinds of parts on here that aren't OEM. It's so original, in fact. It's even got the original heater hoses. You can tell because of the Motorcraft name on there. The OEM factory style constant tension clamps. And you can tell they've not been disturbed. The seal that goes around here is still intact. So nobody messed with this. That's good and bad, actually. A, they had to be replaced. They're getting kind of hard. And B, it kind of tells you that maybe they didn't maintain the car, but in my case, I think I got this thing just in time because the engine runs really well, heat and AC work really well. This gives me a really good foundation to start from. It's got the original alternator, all the original hoses, and let's see, it's got the original spark plug wires even, 1995. And believe it or not, the original spark plugs, you're not going to be able to see down in there. But judging from the rust and corrosion on the spark plug, they're original too, so I think I caught this thing just in time to do some work on it. So stuff like this is what you want to kind of point out with the owner as you're going through it, point out minor problems like this, things that you're going to have to fix. Some of the other things you want to look for is your tires, and see how much tread you have on them. And all tires have a band that goes across the entire width of the tire. That's your tread wear indicator. And on this tire, it's right here. That's your band. And you can tell that the tread is just right at that band. So these tires are basically going to have to be replaced. That's something else that you can use to, here's another band right here. Something else you can use to kind of negotiate your price. These are all things that you're thinking about in your mind, as well as going over it with the owner. That way the owner can actually see for themselves the things that you're pointing out. But these are good Michelin tires. They've got maybe a little bit of life left in them. I've got some time before I have to buy new tires. So under hood looks very good, very clean. It's all original. Gives me a good foundation to start with. You want to check your brake fluid. It's easy to see you've got enough brake fluid, but as you can see down in there, it's never been bled out. Brake fluid's adiabatic, which means it absorbs moisture, so I'm going to have to flush all this out of here with a power bleed system I've got, and that way I'm not going to have to replace the master cylinder or the ABS module. One interesting thing, this thing even has the original water pump on here. Original Ford water pump. 1994. I think you guys can see. Ford gray. So that's really unusual to see. And it actually is good for me, because that means I can keep this thing all original, go through here, replace all the hoses, use the same clamps, flush the coolant system, change the oil, change the brake fluid, power steering fluid, really get this thing back in shape, have it running optimally. So now we'll go to the inside. And one of the things that the owner actually told me is that it has a power window problem. It seems like I'm always having power window problems. The Mercedes over there had a couple of power windows problems that I had to fix recently. So it goes down but not up. You can hear the motor. That's all it does. So you just have to use one hand to put upward pressure on it and use the other to hold the button down. So I got to get this door panel off, get in there and probably replace the motor. Not too big of a deal. Let me get some of these manuals out of the way so I can sit. One of the other things that it had that I noticed was I've got the starter disabled for this purpose. There's a little bit of a problem with the ignition switch. When you go to full on, and it looks like now I've got 150. So I put a little bit of miles on here when I was test driving it. If I try to start it, it just stays on. You got to manually move that back. But the owner was really honest about that. Didn't try to hide it or anything. So that's something else that'll have to be fixed. That's not too hard. There's the ignition switch right there. Just got to pop off this cowl cover, replace that ignition switch, and we're back in business. So the other thing you want to do is basically start it up and listen for any knocking in the engine after it first starts. Ideally, you want to have the owner start it up while you're on this side looking right at the tailpipe. And as soon as he starts it up, you want to see if you see any kind of puff of smoke or anything like that coming out, as well as listen to any kind of knocking as soon as it starts up. just kind of give you an idea of what kind of shape the engine's in. This engine is in very good shape, even though the PCV system has been inoperative for a while. So then after that, once you go through it like that, you basically want to just give it a test drive, go through all the gears, put it in a four-wheel drive mode and test that out as well too, and test all the various systems like the air conditioning. You want to listen for any kind of power steering noise, any kind of moaning and groaning from the power steering pump, and this truck has a little bit of that, but that'll likely be taken care of once I flush the fluid out and everything. You want to, if you can, if your car has a radiator cap, you want to take that off and look in there, and you know, it's pretty old, looks like it hasn't been changed as much as it should have. You want to look down in there and see if you can, the lighting's pretty bad in the sun, but you want to check the individual cores in the radiator to see if you got a lot of scale and rust buildup. And there's a little bit, but not too bad. But this radiator is going to have to be replaced, and I'll show you why in just a second. The other thing you can do is look in the coolant recovery bottle and see what kind of sediment you have down in there. And it's definitely due for a change. I've seen worse, so it looks like it might have been changed once or twice, but it's going to have to be changed out again. And you want to get under the truck actually and look over it very carefully as well too, just like I was looking at it from an accident perspective. You can tell right at that seal on the corner there's a minor leak, which is very typical of these plastic radiators. So it's going to need a new radiator, not immediately but very soon. And just want to kind of look under it and check your front seal on the engine, your oil pan gaskets. Unique to this truck versus the F-150 I have, it's actually got a engine oil cooler. Part of the coolant coming out of the lower radiator hose, which is leaking, goes to the oil cooler and helps cool your oil. That's a nice feature to have. Keeping your oil cool actually reduces oxidation and maintains better viscosity. This truck has a towing package, so it's actually got a really generously sized transmission oil cooler. The stacked plate design. Very big, almost the entire height of the grill. The next thing you want to do is just keep going under the car and check for that rear main seal. Looks like you got a little bit of an oil leak right there, but nothing too major. You want to check the transmission pan gasket. And one thing I noticed is that that's a cork gasket. That's not original to Ford. So this transmission fluid looks like it might have been changed once or twice. And I did check the transmission fluid from the dipstick in the engine compartment, and it seemed like it was in pretty good shape, but I'm going to be flushing all this out anyway. I'll drop the pan, clean everything out. You can tell it's the E40D transmission, which is basically a modern version of the C6. And we'll keep working back. Look, here's your transfer case. Like it's the Borg Warner. And it looks like it's in pretty good shape, no leaks. There's the drain plug. And there's the fill plug. Very easy to change. I'll be doing that as well too. You want to look at the frame, make sure the frame is in pretty good shape, doesn't have a whole lot of rust.
Looks like the fuel filter is fairly recent, but I'll be changing that too. No rust on the fuel tank. The rear end looks pretty good too. So overall, this thing represents an improvement over what I had before. These are all the things that I was doing last Sunday as I was evaluating the vehicle. And I was really happy with what I saw. Just a few minor problems, typical problems with a 17-year-old truck. But for a truck, particularly the way these trucks are generally used, it's in very, very good condition. I've got a really good foundation to start from to go through all the various systems in its shakedown phase, replace all the hoses and everything, and just really get it running well. I'm going to make videos of all that stuff, each step through the process as I do that. So one of the first things I'll do, probably, hopefully sometime today, is I'm going to go ahead and change that engine oil and correct this PCV leak concern that I have there, and start going from there as the parts come in. I've got some parts on order that should be coming in, and as they come in I'll be able to go ahead and put them on and make videos of that and sort of take you guys through that whole process of getting this thing back in good shape. So stay tuned for more videos of this F-250.